Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, after 6 years together, a joyful pandemic wedding turned into a nightmare for my ex-wife and me. Her sudden transformation, distancing, and belittling behavior led to suspicions of infidelity. Confrontation revealed she'd been having an affair with her boss, plotting to leave me. I exposed the truth to his wife, causing chaos. Amid the aftermath, I rebuilt my life, moved to California, and found happiness with a supportive partner. Learning to value myself again, I'm grateful the truth emerged before starting a family. Now let's get into the story. My ex-wife and I had been together for about 6 years before we got married last June of 2021. Getting married during a pandemic wasn't easy, but we had a wonderful wedding, and it was one of the happiest days of my life. Fast forward a few months later, and my wife became a completely different person. She opted to go to the office regularly while I continued to work from home. We both worked from home throughout the pandemic. She worked for a big firm, so the longer hours seemed to be par for the course. But she no longer wanted to spend quality time with me on the weekends, spending a lot of time with her horse, and began to downplay my achievements, claiming I was no longer a go-getter, even though I was doing very well at work. People say that the first year of marriage can be hard, so I started taking my wife on regular date nights to reinvigorate our relationship. But she remained withdrawn and judgmental, which was a big blow to my self-esteem. I racked my brain thinking of what I might have done to make her act and feel this way, but I couldn't come up with anything plausible. So I started to lose sleep thinking I was possibly losing my wife to someone else. These were the worst months of my life because I couldn't believe you could lose the person you married so shortly after tying the knot. So I convinced myself it was the pressure of her job that caused her to act this way, and I opted to suppress the negative thoughts to avoid exacerbating the issues we were having. She was actually gaslighting me the whole time, and I just didn't know it. For D-Day, I organized a romantic weekend by the beach, despite my suspicions, in order to try and revive what we had prior to our marriage. I thought this would renew our bond, but she became more brazen with her disdain. I told her I loved her on our way to dinner, and she didn't reciprocate. Later that evening, she had me take an NSFW photo of her in a bubble bath, and when I mentioned that it was a bit too scandalous for social media, she responded, "That's not what I'm using it for." We have been intimate throughout our marriage, but she refused to be intimate with me on this trip. That's when I finally confronted her on my suspicions and demanded she is honest with me. She denied everything for a while, but I convinced her I had proof I didn't, and she finally confessed. She admitted to sleeping with her boss on numerous occasions for months and that he was pressuring her to leave me. I went through a panic attack which I had never experienced before, and after finally calming down, I realized what a fool she was for falling for his lies. I told her I was going to inform his wife, and she responded, "She'll find out, but you won't be the one to tell her." That's when I knew my ex-wife had convinced herself she was going to run away with her boss. It was sick and a little evil, and I realized that my ex-wife was never who I married. The real her was this manipulative and vile stranger. She changed my flight that night, sent me to my parents' house, and told me she would mail me some boxes of my clothes. I contacted the boss's wife via social media as soon as I got to the airport, and that's when all hell broke loose. Long story short, the boss never planned on leaving his family, and in order to try and save his marriage, he distanced himself from my ex-wife as quickly as possible. A pair currently HR had to get involved, and my ex-wife quickly gained a reputation around her office. She cried and pleaded with me to take her back, but I told her she had made the decision and I was just completing her plan. Aftermath success is the best revenge. Life has been good now that the dust has settled. I live near some of my closest friends, met a wonderful woman, and found a great job in California. I'm learning to love myself again and have realized that my ex-wife's opinion of me during our marriage is not a reflection of who I am or my inherent value. I'm truly happier without her, and while I occasionally feel disheartened by what transpired, I feel blessed that this truth came to light before we had kids. Today's second story. In this story, Opie's life takes a dramatic turn when he unexpectedly wins $50,000 from a scratch-off lottery ticket during his lunch break. Eager to share the news with his wife, he discovers her infidelity upon returning home, leading to a tumultuous confrontation. Despite emotional turmoil, he initiates a divorce, strategically protecting his assets through legal means. As he navigates the aftermath, he learns about the swift downfall of his wife's affair and begins to rebuild his life, emphasizing the importance of fidelity in relationships. Now let's get into the story. So here's my story. While I was on my lunch break one day, I bought a scratch-off lottery ticket. I didn't normally do it because I didn't want to waste money, but for some reason today, I decided to do it. I scratched it off and couldn't believe what I was seeing. I won $50,000. I could hardly contain my excitement as I decided I wasn't going back to work today and drove home to surprise my wife with the money. I opened the front door and started calling out for her, but stopped myself when I heard a man's moaning. Then I heard scrambling upstairs, so I rushed up there. I saw him climb out the second-story window. He landed on the small roof over our front porch, then on the ground, and took off running. My wife was screaming and naked, but I wasn't listening to her. I ran out of our house and down the street after him, but lost him. He got too far of a head start. I returned home to my hysterical wife. I told her I won $50,000 and it was going to help me pay for our divorce. She was confused, upset, and angry. She begged me to reconsider divorce, told me they only did it this one time, and that she needed some of the money for her schooling. That last one got me was a selfish thing to say. I told her I didn't believe a word she said and I didn't care about her schooling. I added that my feelings for her would never be the same now. It was like love mixed with hate, and that wasn't going to be my life. She couldn't believe this was happening and started pulling out her hair and screaming. I tried to get her to stop and said it wouldn't help fix her mistake. Then I asked for her phone. She stopped acting so crazy and looked me straight in the eyes to ask why. I told her it was to check and make sure this only happened one time. She didn't know what to do. She obviously didn't want to give me her phone. I told her she would either give me her phone or I would leave and she'd never see me again. She threw it at me and said if I didn't trust her then I could check. She probably hoped I wouldn't look long enough to find the bad stuff. Her hopes were in vain. I found her hidden texting app and the messages between her and her AP. She tried to grab her phone again, but I kept it and locked myself in the bathroom. She was freaking out, but it was mostly breathless crying. I scrolled up and up and up, but I couldn't find the top of the messages. There were lots of messages to prove he was at our house. More times than I care to say I was done. I instantly resented my wife. I knew I'd probably have emotions emerge later, and it would be hard to resist talking to her. I finally came out of the bathroom and she bombarded me with questions, wanting to know if I'd let it all go and forgive her. I told her I found her messages and asked why she did this to me. She said she was just a woman and she got bored but didn't mean anything by it. She loved me, but she was excited to do something fun. We were only married for 3 years at this point, but I never thought it would end like this. I told her we were absolutely done. She didn't respect the vows she made to me, and I didn't respect her anymore. I told her to pack her bags, and she looked around the room, probably realizing she had a lot of shit to pack and she wasn't going to see this room anymore. She sat on the bed looking overwhelmed and nauseous before she really started sobbing. This was difficult, I can't lie. I had way more pleasant memories about her than bad, but I just let my anger rule me to get me through this. Not out of control, but it was definitely making the hard decisions. I went downstairs and made a bed on the couch, and I was going to sleep down here until she was ordered to move into court. I said if she didn't leave me alone completely, I would tell her sister what she'd done. Her sister was an extremely respectable woman, and my wife lived up to her expectations as best she could, or so I thought. She covered her mouth, eyes watering, and walked away. She closed herself in the spare room. I filed for divorce the next day. I gave my father the secret of what I was dealing with. He was with me emotionally. He lived pretty far, so he was there for me across miles. I appreciate him. My mom left my life when I was intimate. I had two best friends that I also told my experience to. They met me at a park and we talked and walked. Meanwhile, my wife was miserable. She hadn't left her room, but she did text me to ask for money. What a way to show what was on her mind. Our fridge was full. We were stocked on all our toiletries. I asked her what she wanted it for. She said that didn't matter. She was still my wife at the moment, so she was entitled to some of my lottery winnings and income. I contacted my lawyer and he gave me the idea to include a post-nup agreement in favor of myself in the divorce papers. I left the pile of papers on the table to await her signatures. Since she didn't have money to consult a lawyer, she signed them all. I was so thrilled I didn't have to give her anything. Now she had a short time allowed for her to move. She was not happy at all. She ended up telling her sister what happened so she could come get her. I wondered where AP went. A little birdie told me AP was already seeing another woman, so she gave up our new marriage for a man that dropped her like a hot potato. As far as I know, she still lives with her sister, and her sister hasn't been very welcoming. She doesn't have a very large place to live and wasn't expecting to have to divide her living space. I've since started dating, and it's pretty fun, even though I was used to a steady relationship. I hope you all found my story inspiring in one way or another. Don't cheat on your spouse.